Hey there everybody. After researching the information that's out on the internet on how to make a skateboard, I've been thinking about starting a small-scale shop to produce boards to sell. While there's information on how to make boards one at a time, and there are a couple of videos showing how shops make 8 to 10 at a time on a hydraulic press, I wanted an option that's a little more rugged than the vacuum method but less expensive than the heavy commercial version. In this video, I'll show you my plans for a skateboard press that uses relatively inexpensive parts, but could still be upgraded later to handle more volume if I'm selling a lot of boards. One note, please check out my sponsor at primoboards.com. They have everything you'd need to make a complete custom skateboard, including blank, unpainted decks if you decide you'd rather not make your own. Seriously, check them out. Okay, why don't I want to go the full commercial route? Commercial skateboard shops use hydraulic presses on the high end and vacuum presses on the low end. Vacuum presses are made to do one board at a time, and they just don't seem as durable as I'd like. Hydraulic presses can handle 8 to 10 boards at a time, which is awesome, but they cost $5,000 or more. That's just out of my reach, considering I don't even know if my boards would sell. I'm planning on using a fairly inexpensive bottle jack, around $150. These hand-pump jacks still put out 2 to 4 tons of force depending on the model, so it'd still be possible to do multiple skateboards with just one pressing. It just takes a little engineering to make a bottle jack work for what we need. Your first step will be to find and purchase a bottle jack. This is a sample of the tall bottle jacks available from one supplier online. The two important features are the force of the jack. Again, you'll want at least 2 tons, and the distance of the extension when it lifts. Now I'm going to be going with the tall jack instead of a standard jack, just so I get a little bit of extra lift whenever you pump the jack up. And that'll be important when you're trying to make a board. You need the space for the forms. Other than the jack, you'll need some heavy 2-inch by 4-inch tubular steel, a welder, and somebody who knows how to weld, or if you know how to weld, obviously you can do it yourself. I'm going to have mine made by a local welding shop. It's just not that expensive, and I don't know how to weld. You'll also need some enamel paint. Enamel's pretty tough stuff, and that way you won't get rust all over your brand new boards. And you'll need a skateboard form or mold, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay, to make the frame, first you'll need to make a rectangle like in the picture. My planned frame is 3 foot by 4 foot. While it might be possible to assemble the frame without welding it by using bolts, you'll have to do a slightly different layout with lap joints to be able to assemble it. Just make the corners cross over each other so the bolts will have something to connect to. Next, you'll need to make a second frame just like the first. After that, you'll need to connect the corners to make a box. Now my plan has the frames 2.5 feet apart. Obviously you can make yours however you need. Okay, I know there's quite a bit of stuff that I added between these two slides, but bear with me. First, I added an X between the corners on top. Now this X will support the vertical pieces right here, which attach to a steel plate that the upper skateboard form will be bolted to. Now if you look down at the bottom, I've added a small frame to hold the bottle jack. Now in truth, some of this will depend on the jack you purchase, which is why I said you'll need it first. This whole picture here is kind of a generic setup, and it might be similar to what you'd need with an electric hydraulic jack, and it may be what I'll use eventually if I modify mine to use something like that. Now this shows how I'm going to do my frame. I'll use a couple of U-bolts to attach the bottle jack to this cross piece right here to hold it in place. Then, as you see the right hand side, it's open. That'll be the front of the press. It should give me plenty of room to maneuver the handle to pump the jack up and lower it down. Now I can't plan for the specific methods to attach the mold to this jack because that'll depend on the exact model I purchase. And if you remember the picture, some of them had different methods to attach things to the top, but regardless, it should be fairly easy and straightforward to engineer something. I realize that we'll also need a mold or form to make the skateboards with, and there are a few options for this. First, if you go to makeaskateboard.blogspot.com, There's a pretty good article that describes how to make a mold out of laminated plywood. It's in an article on how to make your own skateboards. But this mold that they make would be a decent temporary solution. I just don't know how well it would hold up to the stress of repeated pressings, especially with 2 to 4 tons of force like we'll be applying. A second option would be to buy a mold. There are several suppliers of these on the internet. If you just Google skateboard mold, you'll find what you need if that's what you want to do. The third choice, and the one I'll be doing, is making your own form out of concrete. I'll try to make another video showing either my plans for this or the actual process I've used once I make one, so keep your eyes open for my next video. Thanks for watching this video. I hoped it helped you see how to make a skateboard press, and I also wish you luck in your skateboarding creating. Who knows, maybe the next big board maker will someday say this video helped him get started. You never know. Before I finish, let me remind you once again to visit my sponsor, Primo Boards. Again, they have a gigantic selection of skateboard parts and everything you'd need to make a good custom board. Thanks again.